Okay, welcome back. So in the last video I explained to you about the introduction to domain of a function. So in this video I'll be taking some more examples as to how the domain and the range can be defined. So I explained to you about two examples in the last video. So this video will be another two examples to further elaborate the concept of domain and the range. So let's take a function, a simple function, y equals say x minus 1 upon x. If you have been given some function like this, now you know that if y is equal to x, if I cut this here, or if I partition it here, I'll write it here again, y equals x minus 1 upon x. If I partition it here, or if I cut it here, you can say since y is equal to x can take any value from negative infinity to positive infinity, so that y can be defined. So the range of the domain of this function will be from negative infinity to positive infinity, and the range of the function will also be from negative infinity to positive infinity, since y is equal to x. But in this case, when I subtract my 1 upon x, you know that when x is equal to 0, 1 upon x is infinitive, so you can get real or rational numbers for this. So when x is equal to 0, y cannot be defined, right? So actually there are no values, right? There aren't any values, so there to limit this x, right? Limit this x. So the only limiting factor that can be present here is this fraction, 1 upon x. So when x is equal to 0, y cannot be defined, because you actually subtract 0 minus infinity. You subtract infinity from 0, so that's not defined, so y cannot be defined. For any other value from negative infinity to positive infinity, y can be defined. So y can take negative values, positive values. So the domain of this function, or df will be from negative infinity to 0 is not included, and from 0 to positive infinity, and again 0 is not included. So negative infinity to 0, right? Negative infinity to 0 is not included, so I have put a curly bracket here. Union from 0, so 0 is not again equal, right, to positive infinity, right? 0 to positive infinity. And the range of values is that when x is positive, you can say that when x is equal to 1, you can get 1 minus 1 upon 1 is 0, right? Y can take 0, although x can't take 0. So there are no values to restrict y, as in the case of y equals sin x, there are no values to restrict y, so y will be between negative infinity and positive infinity. So y will be between negative infinity and positive infinity. You can equate to both these values. So y can take negative values and positive values, and even y can take 0, although x can't. Alright, so let's take another example and wind up this topic. So if you have been given some function like this, say y equals x minus 2 over x squared plus 5x plus 6, right? You know that x squared plus 5x plus 6 is 0 when it is equal to what? So the best thing to do here is to factorize. So this is equal to x minus 2 divided by x plus 2 times x plus 3. So when x plus 2 is equal to 0 and when x plus 3 is equal to 0, y cannot be defined, so because you get the infinity. So when x plus 2 is 0, you know x is equal to minus 2, and when x plus 3 is 0, you know that x is equal to minus 3. So when x is equal to minus 2 and when x is equal to minus 3, you can't define x. So you have to exclude those two values from the domain of the function. So when writing the domain, you can say domain of the function is equal to, you can take values from negative infinity to minus 2 and minus 2 is not included. So if you actually draw this in a number line, it would be better. Draw this in a number line, it would be better. So minus 2 is somewhere here. I'll not write 0. Minus 2 is somewhere here. Minus 3 is somewhere here. Right? First of all, I have to write minus 3 here. Right? So minus 2 is somewhere here. Minus 3 is somewhere here. So I can take any value from negative infinity to minus 3. I can take any value between minus 3 and minus 2. I can take any value from minus 2 to positive infinity. So my domain of the function will be from minus infinity to minus 3. Union means you have to include this part as well. You have to include this part as well. From minus 3 to minus 2. So both those values are not included because they can't be equal. Union, you have to include the next part from minus 2 to positive infinity. Right? So when you substitute any value for x other than minus 2 and minus 3, you can get any value for y, whether it's minus or positive or plus. X minus 2 is not a limiting factor. X squared plus 5x plus 6 and x equals minus 2 and x equals minus 3 is the only limiting factor. So you can get any value other than minus 2 and minus 3 for x and substitute and see what are the values y can get. So y can take any value from negative infinity to positive infinity. So the range of the function Rf is equal to from negative infinity to positive infinity, both are not included. Right? So this is another example, and this is the second example of this video. And in this video actually I explained to you about two examples in which domain and the range can be defined and they can be found using the basic concepts of trigonometry, arithmetic and the other concepts. So in the next video I'll be going to a new topic on functions, and thanks for watching this video and see you then.